Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2, Brendan Kitt. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and by students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Roseville College, Primary Department, Roseville. And from Western Australia, John Calvin School, Secondary Department, Yakamia. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Richard Henry Bone. Richard Bone was born to Henry and Emily Bone in 1894 in Eaglehawk, a former gold mining town and suburb within Bendigo, Victoria. Growing up, young Richard Bone attended Eaglehawk State School and was heavily involved in the Eaglehawk Baptist Sunday School. While working as a grocer's assistant, he also served in the Citizens Forces, reaching the rank of corporal. Bone successfully enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in July 1915, 3 months before his 21st birthday. He had tried to enlist on a previous occasion, though had been rejected because of bad teeth. Bone was allotted to the reinforcements to the 21st Battalion and left Melbourne on the troop ship Demosthenes on the 19th of December 1915, bound for Egypt. In the training camps outside Cairo, he was transferred to the 60th Battalion, which was raised as part of the expansion and reorganisation of the AIF. Half of its recruits were Gallipoli veterans from the 8th Battalion, and the other half, like Bone, were reinforcements from Australia. In June 1916, the 60th Battalion left the Middle East to join the fighting on the Western Front. Having only arrived in France on the 28th of June, the battalion became embroiled in its first major battle on the Western Front without the benefit of an introduction to the trenches in a quiet sector. The Battle of Fromelles was a disaster for the battalion. In a single day, it was virtually wiped out, suffering over 750 casualties. Among those listed missing was Private Bone. It wasn't until August 1917 that a court of inquiry convened by the commanding officer of the 60th Battalion found that he'd been killed in action. Private Dumble reported that he and another of Bone's friends had gone looking for him and had found men who had been with him when he fell. Twice they searched no man's land but could find no trace of him. He was 21 years old. Over 5,500 Australians became casualties during the fighting at the Battle of Fromelles, almost 2,000 of whom were killed in action or died of wounds, and some 400 were captured. This is believed to be the greatest loss by a single division in 24 hours during the First World War. 2 years later, on the 11th of November 1918, when the guns of the Western Front finally ceased firing, Australian official war correspondent Charles Bean wandered over the battlefield of Fromelles and observed the grisly aftermath of the battle. "We found the old no man's land simply full of our dead," he recorded. "The skulls and bones and torn uniforms were lying about everywhere." Soon after the war, these remains were gathered to construct VC Corner Cemetery, the only solely Australian war cemetery in France, and the only cemetery without headstones. There are no epitaphs to individual soldiers, simply a stone wall inscribed with the names of 1,299 Australians who died in battle nearby and who have no known graves. Richard Bone's name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name listed on the memorial wall at the VC Corner Cemetery is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Richard Henry Bone, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old.
as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.